gentlemen, fans of 80's wrestling, welcome back to another episode of 80's Wrestling, the podcast. My name is Jumpin' Jay, and we're headed in to Memorial Day weekend with none other than the real American hero, Tommy Fierro. Tommy, welcome back.
What's going on, man?
Listen, man, I'm excited. We're heading into a 3-day holiday weekend. We got a great show on tap coming up just in a few minutes. And you're coming off a very busy time. You get a little break here from your Monday Night Virtual, but you just had the Russian Nightmare, Nikita Koloff, live virtually this past Monday. How was the Russian Nightmare behind the scenes?
Oh, man, he was super nice. You couldn't meet a nicer guy. Actually, the first time I ever worked with him, he was super nice, super polite. Super nice to the staff. He was great, man. I can't say anything but great things about him. Even his signature was great on his pictures. He was dead on with every inscription. He was just really outgoing, very talkative. If you didn't get a chance to watch that virtual signing this past Monday, it'll be up on our website 80'swrestlingcon.com in the next couple of days. Definitely go back and check that out. He was great though, man. But yeah, I finally got a Monday off, Jay. I'm excited, man. We just came off of 3 Mondays in a row. It was Ken Patera, then it was Darren Young and Eric Rowan, and then this past Monday was Nikita Koloff. So I got this weekend off, man. I'm excited. I'm off from the store on Sunday. I am off on Monday because I was going to run a signing on Memorial Day. My wife would kill me. And Tuesday I'm off. I'm having coverage at the store on Tuesday because Tuesday is my daughter Emily's 5th birthday. So I'm going to be off 3 days in a row.
Look at you, Tommy. A much needed little vacay from the whirlwind of wrestling that you've been living through. So what are you going to do Monday? Are you guys closed Monday with Memorial Day? Is the shop closed altogether?
Yeah, we're closed. The store's closed Mondays anyway because it's my signings those days. So I'm always running around with a chicken with his head cut off. But yeah, so Sunday I have coverage at the store. Monday, store's closed. And then Tuesday for my daughter's birthday, I have coverage at the store. So this is my first 3 days off in a long time, man. And I'm going to need it because coming in June, man, it's like non-stop. We have we had a bunch of signings at the store too. The Wrestling Collector in Stockholm, New Jersey. That's our store in that sells all kinds of wrestling merchandise from magazines, T-shirts, action figures, like odd rare items that you're not going to see elsewhere. You can probably find at the Wrestling Collector. We got a bunch of signings there in June, and we have 3 virtual signings in June as well. So, dude, my June's going to be crazy busy. I have Rock and Roll Express on June 7th. The Head Shrinkers, Rakishi and Samu on June 21st. Val Venus on June 28th. That's the 3 virtuals. But then in-store, we have the Brooklyn Brawler on June 12th. We have the Tonga Kid, which we just found out about a couple of days ago. We have him on the 13th. Then on the 19th, we have Barry Horowitz. On the 25th, we have Bushwhacker Luke and Barry Windham. And on the 26th, we have Akeem and Tugboat. So that's my June, Jay.
Listen, you're living the dream. If anyone's listening and they're hearing the names you are rattling off, they are coated with jealousy right now, Tommy. Did you ever think when you were 10 years old, if somebody would have said, hey, this is going to be your month of June when you're an adult? That's the pinch me moment, isn't it?
Absolutely, man. And there's times where, trust me, I'm very, very fortunate to be able to do something that I love to do. And I put this much on my plate, so I'm definitely not complaining about it. I'm excited about it. I'm just messing around. But yeah, man, I look back. I do that once in a while. Like I look back and I say, I grew up watching him. I had his action figure and had his T-shirt and had his poster, and now he's working for me. As I'm older now, I appreciate it and look back on it. When I was younger, I didn't, because I started promoting when I was young, man. I was 16 years old when I promoted my first wrestling show, and in my 20s, early 20s, I ran a lot of conventions and a lot of live events. And one thing I regret, I don't know if I might have maybe told you this off the air one time in the past, maybe not. But one thing I regret is when I was younger, I never got photos taken with any of my talent, because back then when I was younger, I was like 21, 22. I didn't want them to think, he's acting like a fan by wanting to get a picture with me. That was my mindset back then. Now that I'm older, wiser, and been around a long time, I obviously don't look at it that way anymore. And I always cherished taking a photo op with whoever I have for that day, because that's a memory for me. When I look back on, the pandemic era 10 years from now and look at all these pictures of me with all these talents that we did virtual signings and, hopefully cheer up people around the world that, might have been going through something, that was able to get a photo sent to them where typically a wrestler doesn't go. Like, I want to look back on those memories and enjoy them. So back then I didn't do that, man. Like, I had Bruno Sammartino, I've had Sherry Martel, I've had Bobby the Brain Heenan, I've had all these, Captain Lou Albano, George Animal Steel, all these legends that are not with us anymore. And I never took any photos with them, which now, as an adult, I'm kicking myself in the ass because I wish I had those photos.
That's a great way to look at it, though, that you're capturing these memories so that you can have a photographic proof of the cool life that you're leading. So, yeah, take as many photos as you can, but don't be hard on yourself for being young Tommy. That's the way you thought then. Like you said, you're maturing, you're understanding this is once in a lifetime, and you're making the most of it. So we appreciate all the work you're doing, Tommy. We have a huge topic today. We're heading in to Memorial Day weekend, so we are looking at the most patriotic WrestleMania in the history of WrestleManias. We're talking WrestleMania 7, Superstars and Stripes Forever. And I know that if you talk to hardcore wrestling fans, there's some things about this pay-per-view that you can definitely pick apart. It can catch some heat for a couple of reasons. But in my mind, from my childhood, this is one of the last great WrestleManias from my childhood, where a lot of the guys I looked up to are on the card. Tommy, when you first hear WrestleMania 7, what's like the initial response in your gut?
Visually, I see that picture of Sergeant Slaughter with the world title draped over his shoulder, and he's staring, with Hulk Hogan across from him. I believe that picture is used for their the poster for that pay-per-view, if I'm not mistaken. And that's what I visioned in my head. It just with, I think it was a flag wrapped around that picture with, WrestleMania 7 logo on the top of it. I could close my eyes in this picture like it was yesterday.
Well, let me test your memory, Tommy. In that photo, what color is the heavyweight championship title?
I'm pretty sure it was, I think, purple, right? Because he won it from the Warrior.
You're absolutely right. It was the Warriors' purple title. That's the only thing about that photo that smelled off to me as a kid, but you're absolutely right. What an iconic face-to-face showdown for the cover of WrestleMania 7.
And I guess we can start off right at the top. I know we work our way up to the main event when we review a show, but let's switch it up and talk about this match and this angle to kick off our WrestleMania 7 coverage here on Memorial Day weekend here at 80's Wrestling, the podcast. What a iconic angle, an iconic moment. And you're right, Jay. It is like pretty much like the end of our, gearing towards the end of our childhood. I always look at the first 10 WrestleManias as that, and then as it goes 11 up, obviously everyone at this point is growing older, but this first 9 or 10 are iconic. At least for me, the first 9 is like the outdoor one. Then WrestleMania 10 pretty much started like a new era. But WrestleMania 1 through 9, in my opinion, there were some of the more classic ones, and that angle, man, it was you couldn't do that. You couldn't do that these days. You couldn't do something like that, man. Like the heat that, and I'm sure that everyone heard, interviews that Sergeant Slaughter has done in the past where, it was threats for his life or his family's life. Like, man, to have excuse my language, to have the balls to do an angle like that when you're turning on your own country in the middle of such a huge monumental event like that, that's crazy.
It is crazy. And that's one of the things that people who kind of rag on this WrestleMania will say, that they modeled their main event storyline off of a very real war that was taking place in the world. And some people thought that was of poor taste. And you're right. You couldn't do that today. The outcry would be incredible.
Jay, let me, I don't mean to interrupt you, but really quick, let me say this. Okay, they did that. They based it off and, generated money off of something that was happening that was real life. You're telling me there's never been a movie produced that was based off a real life event that was not in great taste, or a TV show based off of something that happened that wasn't nice? Come on, man. I mean, they did it, but so does movies and so does TV. Do you agree with that?
I totally agree with that. And I would take it a step further and say, when wrestling is really good is when it's tackling something that is taking place in the real world. Look, when things are happening in the world, people need an outlet. They need to be able to take their minds off of it. And if you look back through history, a lot of times wrestling was there for people to turn to take their mind off of something, to give them something to root for. And what I love about WrestleMania 7 is it felt very real because of what was going on in the world, and it gave you a chance to root for the good guy, for America. And as a fan, as a young kid watching this, you felt like Hogan versus Slaughter was going to right every wrong in the world. Like, if Hogan could win for America, you felt like there would be this patriotic boost. And so you're right. For people who are skeptic and say wrestling shouldn't do that, you're right. Hollywood does it all the time. TV does it all the time. This was, in the world of pro wrestling, a lot of eyes were on the product. And like you said, there was a lot of heat for Sergeant Slaughter. So the fact that this guy, Sergeant Slaughter, who's known as the real American hero, the first real-life living G.I. Joe, decided to turn heel in such a heated moment, it took a lot of guts on his end. And I think overall, if you look at it, it paid off.
Oh, man, absolutely. And you're 100% right, too, Jay. Like, that storyline was to get people's minds off of their problems. And obviously the good guy won at the end. The flag was waved through the air. Hulk Hogan wins the title, and it's a happy ending. But you're right, though, man. Like you said, how, throughout the years, WWF and wrestling in general, they would, base some storylines off of some real life situations. And, if you're not a wrestling fan, or if you're not involved with the wrestling business, it's hard to understand. But from what I'm about to say, that people that are a part of the business and are a huge fan of the business, it's like it overtakes, and I don't mean it in a bad way. It just overtakes your world. Like it's like none other, man. It's like, you could be a football fan, you could be a baseball fan, you could be a basketball fan, and you could be a hockey fan. But there's something about being a wrestling fan. It's like once you have it in your blood, and I can't say once it's in your blood, it's in there forever, because that's not true. Because back in the day, during the Attitude Era, when there was 8 million people watching it, obviously those people are not around anymore. But for the most part, those diehard fans, wrestling is their life, man. And to be able to help fans escape reality and keep them entertained during tough times, in my opinion, man, that's very, very important. And I believe Hulk Hogan and Sergeant Slaughter did that. I hope that I wasn't rambling. I hope what I said made sense in some kind of weird way.
It made perfect sense, man. If you are a fan of wrestling, especially if you grew up watching it and just didn't tune in, like you said, when wrestling, it goes in streaks where it's real hot and then it cools off and it's real hot again. If you're somebody that just jumped on when it's real hot and the NWO is running wild and the Attitude Era is running wild and then you trail off, it might be different. But if you grew up watching the product, and like you said, it's in your blood and you have a passion for it and you love it, yeah, you get hooked and you get drawn into these storylines. And this storyline had you. I mean, it's the perfect good guy versus bad guy situation, and it comes along at a time when the world is facing a good guy versus bad guy situation in real life. And so it was the perfect time. So I don't give the WWF any fault for going with this storyline. I think it was a good storyline for the time, and man, it had you hook, line, and sinker. So let's talk about this main event. Let's talk about Hulk Hogan versus Sergeant Slaughter. Now, this is WrestleMania 7. We're coming off of one of the biggest WrestleMania main events the year before with the Hogan versus the Warrior. And I know at that one, you were Team Warrior against Hulk Hogan. Now, I'm going to bet everything I have that at WrestleMania 7, you were not against Hulk Hogan. Am I right?
Oh, absolutely right, Jay. I was heavily behind Hulk Hogan. And what you said earlier, you know, it was called, you know, Superstars and Stripes Forever. I mean, right there, that just goes to show you that it's going to be a feel-good moment. And what made this main event so much more intriguing, Jay, in my opinion, is that Sergeant Slaughter was originally and known throughout his entire career as the biggest American supporter. So this is what made this match so unique for fans all around the world, and especially for me, because you know, if you're a kid, you grew up watching Sergeant Slaughter waving that American flag and being patriotic. And now he turned his back on your country. It's like it was such a shock to see that, especially during the time that it happened. And what better babyface, what better guy to get revenge on that man right there who turned his back on America, turned his back on his fans, than Hulk Hogan. I mean, you couldn't write a better storyline for the time that it was done, the way it was done. It was just perfect. And it came off from Sergeant Slaughter beating Warrior for the belt. And at that time, you know, Warrior was red hot. And what better guy to get revenge than besides Warrior, Hulk Hogan?
You know, you're absolutely right. And, you know, you've heard rumors that if Sergeant Slaughter wasn't going to be the guy, if he wasn't going to turn heel, if he didn't agree to do it, that the other name that they had at the top of their list at the time was Tugboat. They were going to turn Tugboat heel and have him go anti-America, and mainly playing off the fact that Tugboat was a big Hulk Hogan supporter. And so it would have been the breakup of their friendship. But let's be honest, a Shiek Tugboat would not have carried the same weight as... We'll talk to him later about this situation, Tommy. Man, the Shiek. You say the word Shiek, and he just comes out of the background.
Go back, Shiek.
Go back. Listen, nothing against Tugboat. I love Tugboat. But a Shiek Tugboat would not have carried the same weight as Sergeant Slaughter turning against America. And so...
Shiek Tugboat. I mean,
could you imagine? I don't think that would have carried the same amount of weight as Sergeant Slaughter did.
I can picture it. I can picture him with the headgear on and maybe the colors of Iraq as his outfit. I can picture him doing the character, and I can picture even Adnan with Tugboat. Obviously, Tugboat. I think here I might catch a little heat for saying this for people out there that totally disagree with me, but hear me out. I think that it could have worked. Tugboat was a big supporter of Hulk Hogan. I believe he had the thing to do with the friendship bracelet. And if he would have turned his back on Hulk Hogan and went with Iraq and had dressed up as an Iraqi with Adnan, I think that it had some legs to it to be a marquee match if the story was told the right way and it gave it enough time to build it up. Is it anywhere near as classic as it turned out to be with Slaughter and Hulk Hogan? Obviously not. But I think that it could have worked. It's not my ideal choice for a WrestleMania main event, But if they didn't have anything else, if they didn't have Slaughter, and they had nothing else for Hogan at that time, I think it could have worked. Would it have been the greatest thing in the world? But it could have worked, storyline-wise.
I don't doubt that WWF could have made it work, but I don't. It just wouldn't have had the feel, the meaning behind it. Because let's face it, when Slaughter turned against America, we all felt like we were betrayed because that's all we knew about Sergeant Slaughter was he was USA, and for him to turn, it felt like he was turning on all of us. And I don't think it would have had that same feel as Tugboat. Now, you could have really played up the friendship angle between Hogan and Tugboat because, like you said, Tugboat was involved in those friendship bracelets when Hogan was injured. He was the one begging fans to, write letters to Hulk Hogan, support him, let him know we're here for him. And so they could have really played up the friendship angle. But as far as feeling betrayed, yeah, we all felt betrayed by Sergeant Slaughter.
Absolutely. And again, I'm not suggesting that Hogan and Tugboat should have been the main event of WrestleMania 7. I'm just saying if Slaughter wasn't in the picture and if that was the original idea, they could have made it work. Would it have been Steamboat and Savage? No. But they could have made it work. But obviously, we got Slaughter, and thank God we did because it was an amazing angle, amazing match, and it told a great story.
It did. And none of Hogan's matches are going to be Savage, Steamboat, and Slaughter. They didn't wrestle that way, but they didn't have to for this match. Like you knew, this was almost as a kid, as a fan, this felt more than just a wrestling match. This felt like a war inside the squared circle, and so you knew these two guys were going to go at it. And of course, you're pulling for Hulk Hogan. You're pulling for America. I don't know anybody at the time that was pulling for Slaughter. I'm sure there were people who were doing it just to do it, but you had to know Hogan was coming out on top. That feel-good moment, America beating the enemy, and a bloody Hogan strapping on the world title at the end of that match. I loved this as a kid. I loved this main event.
Yeah, me too, man. It was perfect timing, I believe the perfect story, and it's a huge part of WrestleMania history.
It is. And let's talk. You mentioned that the only reason Sergeant Slaughter had that championship going into WrestleMania 7 is because he was the one that defeated the Ultimate Warrior, who was on his championship reign after beating Hulk Hogan in the main event of the previous year's WrestleMania. Sergeant Slaughter beats the Ultimate Warrior, and you might think, well, if somebody beats the champion should get that rematch at WrestleMania. But the reason that didn't happen is another big card on this WrestleMania 7 pay-per-view. Randy Savage interfered in the match that cost him the title, allowing Sergeant Slaughter to become the champion. And so there was something that meant much more to the Ultimate Warrior than the championship. That was his career, which he put on the line at WrestleMania 7 against Randy the Macho King Savage. This was match number 8 on the card, about the midway point. What are your feelings about this match, Tommy?
Awesome. Love the build up to it. Love the match. Again, and another big moment in WrestleMania history, especially the ending. The ending I love so much with the returning Miss Elizabeth and her and Savage reunite to end that. You could tell how much the crowd loved Savage because they hated him when he came out. And, man, they wanted that so bad with him and Elizabeth reuniting. They wanted to cheer Macho Man. They needed a reason to, and they certainly got it because that there at the end there with Savage and Elizabeth, embracing and reuniting, in my opinion, was one of the greatest moments in WrestleMania history. Not the match. The match was great. The aftermath with that little segment right there with Elizabeth and Savage, that'll be in our minds 50 years from now.
WWF always had a way of hitting you in the feels. And this is one of those moments where, first of all, as a kid, you don't want to see Savage or the Warrior retire. So the fact that somebody's career is going to end, you're already kind of torn. I mean, at this point, if you're a typical fan, you're a Warrior supporter. And so you're cheering for the Ultimate Warrior, but in your heart of hearts, you don't want to see Savage leave at the end of the day either. And so you're kind of in this weird, you don't want to see either of these guys leave the wrestling scene. And so when Savage takes the loss, yeah, part of you is like, man, I don't know how I feel about this. But they have a way of leaving you on a high note. When Miss Elizabeth is in the crowd and she comes in and she takes care of Queen Sherry and reunites with the Macho Man, and he hoists her up on his shoulder, the crowd is going crazy. The joy you feel from these two reuniting outweighs the fact that Savage just lost a career match. It's crazy how they were able to almost manipulate your feelings so that you leave on a happy note, even though someone's career just ended.
I couldn't have said that better myself, Jay. You just summed it up perfectly.
Let's talk about this match. The thing I remember about this match, first of all, the thing that I remember foremost is the Warrior's trunks. Now, he always wore these amazing trunks. And in this WrestleMania, he's got the airbrushed picture of Macho Man on one knee pad, the Warrior on the other. Front of his trunks have an image of both men. And on the back is an airbrushed portrait of the Winged Eagle championship belt. And it says above it, means much more than this. So he's sending a message that even though he lost the championship, this match with Randy Savage, career on the line, means more to him than the championship. And the storytelling of the match where you don't know who's going to win. And there's times where both men seem they're going to win. There's a time in the match where the Warrior seems to have put Macho Man away, but he can't get the 3 count. So he starts questioning himself whether he has what it takes to beat Macho Man. I love that throughout this match, I did not know who was going to win. I didn't know who was coming out on top. I love it when a match leaves you guessing the entire way.
Absolutely, man. They told a great story. Couldn't have been any better. And 2 of the top guys in the company at that time, obviously. The aftermath storyline with Elizabeth, Macho Man, loses his career. I mean, just there's so much to digest right in that, right in that match, right there. All these different angles coming at you this way and that way. But man, it was definitely up there. I mean, that might have had to have gone last if it wasn't for Sergeant Slaughter, because I think that could have took the top spot from Shiek Tugboat and Hogan.
And one of the things I love, you didn't know it at the time, but this is typical the world of wrestling. Macho Man loses a career-ending match at WrestleMania 7. WrestleMania 8, he's main eventing for the world title. And so I just love that. Never say never in the world of professional wrestling. But as a WrestleMania 7 match, Savage Warrior, one of the top memories for sure.
Absolutely. No question about it. So just for those 2 matches alone, it makes it a very, very, very noteworthy WrestleMania between Hogan and Slaughter and Savage and Warrior in a retirement match. But that's not it, man. You had the Undertaker's WrestleMania debut at WrestleMania 7. Now, back then, it didn't really seem like a big deal. Even if you would have said this, I don't know, 7-8 years ago, it wouldn't have seemed like a big deal. But now that he's, retired, and you look back at his body of work and his legacy at WrestleMania, to say that this WrestleMania was his first one against a legendary performer in himself makes this an even more newsworthy pay-per-view.
It does. And one of the things I love about WrestleMania 7 is it's the end of certain things from my childhood love of wrestling. And we'll get to those matches because there's a few people's last appearances on this card. But along with people's last appearance is maybe the greatest first appearance of all time. historically, knowing what we know about The Undertaker's career, knowing what we know about his WrestleMania streak, and looking back at WrestleMania 7, it's the 7th match on the card. It only goes 4 minutes, 20 seconds. It's his WrestleMania debut against Superfly Jimmy Snuka. The beginning of the streak happens at WrestleMania 7. And like you said, the match itself, nothing special, other than the fact that it's the start of the streak and it's against a wrestling icon, Jimmy Snuka. It's his first win on. It just sets his career off. His first WrestleMania appearance on this card. It's almost like some of the things from my childhood is ending while other things are starting. I love it.
Yeah, man, absolutely.
Let's talk about one of the things that is ending at this WrestleMania. This marked the last televised match of Demolition as we know it. Now, this was Smash and Crush, so Axe is already out of the picture. But as a tag team, this is the last televised match of Demolition. After this match, Crush would disappear for a while before coming back as the Hawaiian version of Crush, and Smash would disappear and then return as the Repo Man. So we have The Undertaker kicking off his WrestleMania career, and we have Demolition's last televised match. And I'm going to butcher these names, Tommy. You could probably say them better than me. He goes against a couple of Japanese wrestlers, Tenryu and Kateo.
That's good.
We'll count that?
We'll count that.
And so at the time, I didn't know this was going to be Demolition's last match. Otherwise, I probably would have paid closer attention to it. But looking back, 2020 vision, this is their last televised match of what I consider the greatest pure WWF tag team. I loved Demolition as a kid. I loved them.
Me too, man. Also, did you know, Jay, that this was actually the last this one makes this pay-per-view even more newsworthy. Not only was it the last Demolition match, it was actually the last televised match of Bret the Hitman Hart and Jim the Animal Neidhart as the Hart Foundation together as well.
Look, two tag teams who were staples of wrestling in the 80s. This is their last time performing together as teams. Unbelievable. Like historically, like you said, looking back at it, if we only knew at that time, the Hart Foundation lost the tag team titles to the Nasty Boys on this card, and then they disband. Now Bret Hart is about to go on one heck of a singles career run, but Jim Neidhart's going to kind of flounder. So like the Hart Foundation as we know it, Demolition as we know it, this is the end of the road for those two iconic tag teams.
End of an era. And let's start off with a tag team match that kicked off the WrestleMania 7 pay-per-view. It was the Rockers, Shawn Michaels and Marty Jannetty, defeating Haku and the Barbarian with manager Bobby the Brain Heenan. Nice opener, man. Haku and Barbarian together as a team. I mean, two monsters, and they went on later to be obviously the faces of fear in WCW. But a nice opening match with the Rockers picking up the win in 10 minutes and 33 seconds.
This is, speaking of last appearances, this is the last WrestleMania appearance of Marty Jannetty. And so I don't know, when did that barbershop iconic split of the Rockers happen? But if this is the last WrestleMania appearance for Marty Jannetty, this has got to be one of the last pay-per-view appearances of the Rockers.
Yeah, I would say so.
This is like the death of tag team era at the time.
Yeah. Next up was the Texas Tornado against Dino Bravo, managed by Jimmy Hart. Texas Tornado picks up the win in 3 minutes and 11 seconds. I know a lot of diehard wrestling fans from that era hated the fact that the WWF called him the Texas Tornado and not just Kerry Von Erich. To me, I didn't have a problem with it. Even looking back on it now as an adult that knows and understands the business, I don't look at it as a negative. I think that when you go to WWF, you have to, they have to have control, not control, but they want to market your name. They have to have their own name for you because Kerry Von Erich was his name before he got there. So for, marketing and branding purposes, I could see why they needed to change his name. And it wasn't that far off. I think the Texas Tornado, name and character fit him just fine,
I thought it did too. And I swear that they would periodically refer to him as the Texas Tornado, Kerry Von Erich. I think they would occasionally slip his real name in there. And of course, Kerry Von Erich, tremendous performer, known at the time as the modern day warrior. And the reason they couldn't use that, of course, is because they already had the Ultimate Warrior. They already had the Road Warriors, the Legion of Doom. And so adding another warrior seemed to muddy the water. And so they settled on the Texas Tornado, which as a kid, I love that name. I still love that name. And the fact that he used kind of a spinning punch as his finisher, and what a performer. Like, he would go on, and unfortunately, we all know about the demons that he had going on in his life. So he probably was not at a high spot in his personal life. But he would go on to have memorable matches in the World Wrestling Federation with Mr. Perfect. And so I love the fact that he's on this card. Dino Bravo, always a solid performer on a card. Great heel. He has Jimmy Hart by his side. So I love that the third match on this card gives Kerry Von Erich his first WrestleMania appearance.
Yes, sir. And up next is the British Bulldog, Davey Boy Smith against the Warlord, managed by the Doctor of Style, Slick. We actually have Slick coming up for a virtual signing with us on Monday, September the 20th. You can actually head over to 80'swrestlingcon.com right now and select which photo you want for Slick to sign. Go out and sign it live, and we ship it out to you afterwards. Or if you have old merchandise of Slick you'd like to send in, like magazines or action figures, you can do that as well. Just go to 80'swrestlingcon.com. And this match is two big guys, especially back still in 1991. It was it was a land of giants back then still. And, these two guys were both larger-than-life characters and performers. And, you look back at, this lineup, and, if you're not a diehard, historian that remembers every single match, and trust me, I know there's many out there that do, you might not have even remember that British Bulldog wrestled the Warlord at a WrestleMania.
I remember being a subscriber to the WF magazine, and they did a big article about the Warlord versus Davey Boy Smith, and each, like, it was, you opened up the magazine and it was right in the center. So like the page on the left had a picture of the British Bulldog's giant bicep, the picture on the page on the right had a picture of the Warlord's giant bicep. And they were really selling this as two strong guys colliding, two big muscular men settling it all in the ring. Who's the strongest in the World Wrestling Federation? And actually, in 1991, British Bulldog and the Warlord faced off in all 5 pay-per-views in 91, including WrestleMania 7. So these two had a year-long intertwining storyline where they were battling each other. And I love this because I'm a huge Bulldog fan, but I was also a Warlord fan. He's a heel. I probably didn't cheer for him, but just his look. Like, he's always just an intimidating monster of a man. And so to see him go one-on-one with the Bulldog at WrestleMania 7 was fun.
Yes, sir. And up next was the match you were talking about earlier. The Nasty Boys captured the tag team titles, defeating the Hart Foundation. And Jimmy Hart is in the Nasty Boys corner. Jimmy Hart's all over this pay-per-view. He's in there later, twice later, too. He's in there later with Earthquake, and he's in there later with the Mountie. So Jimmy Hart works 4 times at WrestleMania. That might be a WrestleMania moment. WrestleMania
record.
Sorry,
it might be. We have to look. I'm guessing Bobby Heenan's got multiple appearances on a few cards, but I don't know if he has that many.
That's a lot.
It is a lot.
So, yeah, Nasty Boys win the tag titles here. And up next, Jay, is another really, really big WrestleMania 7 match and moment for me that I remember like it was yesterday. And it was Jake the Snake Roberts and Rick the Model Martel in a blindfold match. This match was super fun, man. I enjoyed this match.
We talked about this one when we did our Jake the Snake episode, and you're right. This is a memory from your childhood. Now, a lot of times, blindfolded matches people don't really care for. But these two guys, the way they orchestrated it, the way that Jake the Snake would listen for the cheer of the crowd to tell him he's getting close to the model, the way he would feel to see if somebody was wearing a shirt to know if it was his opponent or not. Jake the Snake's storytelling in this match is just incredible.
Absolutely. And Jake defeats Rick Martel in 8 minutes and 34 seconds. It just goes to show what great of a storyteller, not just Jake, but Rick Martel also, that they barely had to do anything, and they had that crowd in the palm of their hands that entire time. Excellent stuff. Next up, The Undertaker makes his WrestleMania debut with Paul Bearer, defeating legendary Jimmy Superfly Snuka, like you said earlier, 4 minutes and 20 seconds. After that is The Ultimate Warrior, defeating Randy Savage with Queen Sherry in a retirement match, 20 minutes and 47 seconds. Then up after that is Demolition's final match, Smash and Crush, against your boys, the Japanese crew. And after that is a singles match for the WWF Intercontinental title. Mr. Perfect, champion with Bobby the Brain Heenan, loses this match, disqualification against the Big Boss Man. Another big match here, looking at the landscape of WrestleMania 7. Perfect, one of the top heels at the time. Boss Man, one of the top babyfaces at the time. Intercontinental title on the line. Another big match here at WrestleMania 7.
It was a big match. And both of these guys are great sellers in the ring. And so this match is just fun to watch because they are both selling for each other. And Boss Man, he's one of those guys that you could argue maybe didn't need a championship title. Mr. Perfect probably didn't need one either, but man, he made that Intercontinental Championship something special. And so to have that title on the line between one of the greatest Intercontinental champions of all time, Mr. Perfect, against, like you said, a fan favorite. People loved the Big Boss Man at this stage in his career. And so you're really pulling for him to get the win. He defeats Mr. Perfect, but it's by disqualification, so the title, it don't change hands.
No, and also, I know, Jay, I know you're a big fan of Boss Man's theme song. I know that you and your family were singing it together on your summer road trip last year, right?
You are absolutely right, man. This is back when theme songs were catchy. They'd get stuck in your head. And 30 years later, we can still sing them when we're road tripping through Georgia.
I'll make a trade with you right now. If you sing me 5 seconds of the Big Boss Man's theme song, I'll give you some Bushwhacker Luke.
Will you give me Bushwhacker Luke singing Boss Man's theme song?
Yeah, I will.
Whoa. I was gonna try to do the whoa for you, but I can't even match your Luke's whoa. All right, Tom, you gonna sing it with me? Everybody knows this one.
No, you first, then I'll sing. I want to hear you.
All right. I don't really have the best singing voice, so here we go. If you ever make your way down to Cobb County, Georgia, you better read the signs. Respect the law and order. You'll serve hard times.
Whoa! You're the serving hard time. Whoa! You're not a big. Oh, sorry.
Luke in the house. Way to go, Bushwhacker Luke.
Way to go, Jay. You got a nice set on you, man.
Listen, man, we could do a whole show on 80s theme songs. Maybe we have already. I don't even remember, but man,
we actually have.
We did that.
I think it would be a cool episode, Jay. Maybe next week. I want to do it. I wanted to do this soon. I think it'd be cool. All the old 80s wrestling merchandise that fans collected back in the day, from LJN figures to the T-shirts, the posters, the Hasbro figures, the puzzles. There was everything back then in the 80s was branded WWF and their superstars. How about we do an 80s wrestling merchandise episode next week?
I think that's a great idea, Tommy. I'm super excited about that. That leads me to a very serious question, though.
Yes.
You work at a wrestling collector superstore, so you see things come through your door. You own one. That's what. Yeah, you don't work there. You own one. Here's my question: how hard is it not to just take everything home for your own collection?
Man, I don't want to. The stuff that I buy, I don't want to sell any of it. To be honest with you, I really, really don't. What's cool, Jay, is at the store, people come in a couple times a week with stuff that they want to sell me, because they'll call the store and say, hey, you guys buy stuff, and I say, yeah, bring it in, whatever. And a lot of times, dude, it's really cool. It's like Storage Wars, but they're bringing it to me. Like, I don't have no idea what's coming, It's like they walk through the door with with a tub of stuff, and I'm over here like watering from the mouth, hoping that it's going to be black card LJN figures inside of it when they open it, and when they open it, it's ripped wrestling magazines, and it's not so cool. But you sometimes you get surprised, what's in these boxes that people are bringing in the store. So it's fun. It's like Storage Wars, but they bring it to you. But yeah, to answer your question, man, there's a lot of the stuff that I have, I don't even want to sell it. Like, what's cool now, though, if I see a couple things, my wife don't listen to the show, so I get away with saying this. Sometimes when people bring stuff in and it's really good, I'll put it in the back room. I have like a back storage room at the store for me, my own personal collection. If anyone ever asks, it's just inventory back there, but it's really mine.
I would be the exact same way, Tommy. I don't blame you at all. I would have a hard time letting go of any of that stuff because it's a moment in time, and it's stuff that you remember from your childhood, or maybe it's stuff that you didn't have in your childhood, but you always wanted. And so now here it is in your store. So at least you get to look at it and enjoy it.
Yeah.
There. And the nice thing is, the people that are coming to your store that are buying this stuff, they're going to cherish it.
Absolutely.
Like it means something to them as well.
Yeah, man. So yeah, I think next week that'll be a really fun episode.
Let's do it.
We'll talk 80s wrestling merchandise.
Let's do it. I look forward to it. I can't wait. All right, the next match on the card, match number 11, Jimmy Hart makes another appearance. He's with the very powerful Earthquake as he defeats Greg the Hammer Valentine in single competition in just 3 minutes and 14 seconds. He makes very short work of the legendary Hammer.
Yeah, man, it was a quick one. And Valentine at the time is a baby face, and again, if you don't really know your WrestleMania match history, and you ask the average casual fan, did Earthquake ever wrestle Greg Valentine at a WrestleMania? You might say no, because it's not a match that I have to think about to remember it.
Absolutely, I think Earthquake competed at only 2 WrestleManias, 6 and 7. This was a singles one, and I think at 7. He was in a tag team. And so, is that right? That might not be right. My memory could be fading. No, he's 4-1 in WrestleMania. I just Googled it. He's 4-1. So a good WrestleMania record. And here he is defeating Greg the Hammer Valentine.
Yes. And then next up was a very underrated tag team, Power and Glory, Paul Roma and Hercules, managed by the Doctor of Style, Slick. I loved Power and Glory. I thought they were a great team. I thought they had great chemistry with Slick. And they were made very, very short work of by the Legion of Doom, who defeats them in just 59 seconds.
I have mixed feelings about this because I love the Legion of Doom, and they're coming into the WWF at this time. And that's one of the reasons I think that Demolition ends up fading into the background, is because you now have the Legion of Doom, Hawk and Animal, who are kind of made the similar vein as Demolition. And so I think Demolition fades into the background so that the Legion of Doom can kind of have the spotlight. But I'm a big fan of Power and Glory. So to see this match end in just a minute, yes, while it gets Hawk and Animal over, and those two guys are big and powerful, I feel like Power and Glory could have been given a little more bigger of a push as a tag team. I thought they worked well together. I thought they complemented each other. I loved the look that they had with like these red lightning bolt type sunglasses, the cutoff sweatshirts. I like them as a team. And so I would like to have seen a little longer match, but yeah, it got Hawk and Animal over.
Absolutely. And that's the main purpose of it. And for that reason alone, they needed that. I mean, they don't need that. They're the Legion of Doom. They're the Road Warriors. They're iconic. But you know what I'm saying? They needed to have a really dominant debut, and I believe they did so. And I think that's probably why Power and Glory unfortunately, were the victims here because they needed to get over really, really, really strong on someone really quickly, I think. And I think that you couldn't just destroy the Demolition like that. And, Haku and Barbarian are two big monsters. You just couldn't destroy them like that. Same with the Nasty Boys. I mean, Nasty Boys in a team and just go in there and kill. I'm not saying that Paul Roma and Hercules are, by no stretch of the imagination. I'm not saying it in a negative way, but they needed to dominate someone. So it had to be someone. So it was them.
But if you knew that this was Demolition's last appearance, you could have had Legion of Doom destroy Demolition, and then Demolition disappears.
That's true. You could have done that. Yeah, you could have done that.
If you knew they weren't going to be a tag team anymore, why not send them out, getting beat by Hawk and Animal, one of maybe the greatest tag team ever, compared to getting beat by Tenryu and Katao.
You know what, man? You just booked WrestleMania 7 better than they did, because that's exactly
we'll redo it.
Now that you just said that, that's exactly what I would have done.
Right?
I would have had Legion of Doom destroy Demolition. Demolition has had a long, successful career in the WWF, so they could have really, cleaned house on them real quick and really made a lasting impression. So much that you never even saw. They destroyed Demolition so bad you never even saw them again.
You never saw them again.
So yeah, and then Tenryu and Kateo, no disrespect, but we could have did the show without them on it. And
they could have went against Power and Glory.
They could have.
Maybe
your boys, the Bolsheviks, could have went against Tenryu and Kateo.
I think they were already booked somewhere. They were pretty high in demand at the time.
Yeah, your high school gym. They were main eventing, remember?
Main eventing, baby.
Up against WrestleMania 7. It was the Bolsheviks at your high school against Baron von Reschke and Ken Patera.
There you go, man. And I won't even tell you where they went out to eat afterwards. Next on the card is we have Virgil with Rowdy Piper ringside against the $1 Million Man, Ted DiBiase. Virgil versus Ted DiBiase. What are your thoughts?
I loved it, and I cringe every time people make fun of Virgil on his social media or on their social media, pictures of him sitting by himself, not signing autographs for anyone. I mean, it's funny. The memes are funny, don't get me wrong. But if you look back at his run in WWF, he was one of the top. At that time, he's wrestling Ted DiBiase here. Ted DiBiase, treated him so bad for so long that Virgil finally woke up and came to his senses. You have Roddy Piper, one of the most iconic baby faces, heels, and just stars in general of all time for that company, in his corner for this match. And, that's a prominent spot on this card. Virgil against Ted DiBiase, the storyline that was behind it and the build up for it made this one of the top 3 or 4 matches on the show, in my opinion.
It did. You were interested in this match because you had seen these two men together for their run in the WWF, and you saw the way DiBiase treated Virgil, and so you were it was kind of an underdog situation. You were rooting for Virgil to beat DiBiase, and so there was a lot of interest in this match, and they would go on to continue their feud throughout 1991. But yeah, this was a big one. As a fan, you wanted to see this match for sure.
Absolutely. And next up was a super quick one, too. The Mountie with Jimmy Hart defeats Tito Santana in just 1 minute and 21 seconds. See, I draw a blank for this one. I remember that they wrestled each other. I don't remember it being that quick. I'm going to have to go back and watch this pay-per-view after we record this, because I wonder why that was so quickly. You remember what the finish was on that?
I don't remember what the finish was on this. Honestly, the thing that is in my mind right now is when we had the opportunity. What's that?
Shiek Tugboat's on your mind. and what could have been.
And what could have been in the main event. I was going to say, when we had the opportunity to talk to Tito Santana, one of the things he talked about was the difference a spot on the card makes, and as a performer, what your role is, and how in early WrestleMania, WrestleMania 1, he was the first match out to kind of set the pace and get the ball rolling. And now here, he's facing the Mountie in the match right before the highly anticipated main event. And so it's just kind of neat to see that you can kind of plug Tito Santana anywhere on the card that you need him, and you know you're going to get a performance. Now, it's only 1:21, like you said, a very quick match with the Mountie going over. But it's nice to see Tito Santana being kind of moved around the card. And after talking to him, you know that there's a purpose for spots on the card. And so this match was obviously placed right before the main event for a reason.
Yeah, I don't know what that reason was because it was only 1:21, but it is what it is. And obviously the final match, the 15th match of the live crowd, there was 14 matches on the pay-per-view, but the opening dark match was Coco Beware against the Brooklyn Brawler. Again, you don't know your WrestleMania history. You might not have known that Brooklyn Brawler wrestled a singles match at a WrestleMania. It was a dark match against Coco. And so, yeah, this was going to be the 15th match on the card for the live crowd. And obviously it's the one that everyone's been waiting for. Hulk Hogan captures the WWF World Heavyweight title from Sergeant Slaughter. 20 minutes, 26 seconds, almost the longest match on the show. The only one beating that is Warrior and Savage by nearly just 20 seconds. So a big match. Overall, you look back on this, a very, very, very newsworthy pay-per-view. You have Hogan winning the title back from Slaughter. You have Virgil and DiBiase finally going at it one-on-one after DiBiase's treated Virgil horrible for so long. It's the Legion of Doom's first WrestleMania match. It is Demolition's last. It is the Hart Foundation's last. It's Randy Savage's he would come back the following year, but at the time you think it's his retirement, and the return of Elizabeth, the Undertaker's debut, a wicked blindfold match between Jake and Rick Martel, the Nasty Boys winning the tag titles, and just a very overall newsworthy pay-per-view, and I'm sure that a lot of people, after listening to this episode, is going to go back and watch it.
It's very newsworthy historically. And I referenced this WrestleMania as being one of the last WrestleManias of the era that I really grew up and fell in love with wrestling, because the next year, WrestleMania 8 looks a little different. We have guys in the main event spot who are primarily known for being NWA or WCW wrestlers at the time. You know, we have Sid Vicious and we have Ric Flair headlining next year's WrestleMania. So WrestleMania 7 is kind of the last WrestleMania of the golden era of like the WWF wrestlers. This is where it starts to change. And like you said, 8 and 9, I still come into like the ones of my childhood. WrestleMania 10 with the iconic ladder match. And after that, it kind of starts to morph into Attitude Era type, a different type of vibe. So WrestleMania 7 is kind of the end of the line for the guys who are on my TV every Saturday. It starts to change a little bit after this. We get some new faces for WrestleMania 8. So this one, WrestleMania 7, has a nostalgic spot in my heart for sure.
Absolutely, and you said that perfectly as well. I couldn't have said it better myself.
Well, there we go. That is WrestleMania 7, Superstars and Stripes Forever, as we head into Memorial Day weekend. We'll have to go back and watch some of this, Tommy. It's a great weekend to do it.
You know what? Here's the only problem I have, Jay. It is Memorial Day weekend. It is a huge weekend for America. Do you think it's a good idea to get the Iron Sheik on the phone on this call, on this podcast on Memorial Day weekend?
Well, here's the deal. That's a great point. I don't know if we didn't talk about it, but the role the Iron Sheik played in Sergeant Slaughter's heel turn was special. It added to that heat, and so this might be a sensitive topic.
Yeah, he is not a fan of Colonel Mustafa. If you want, it is a newsworthy question because we are talking about WrestleMania 7 with Hogan and Slaughter. It's up to you, man. I can call him if you want to ask him.
I mean, we could ask him what his thoughts are on Colonel Mustafa. You don't think he's a fan, huh?
Shiek, Jumping Jay from the 80's podcast wants to ask you a question. A fucking question. Hello?
Shiek!
Hello?
Shiek, it's Jumpin' Jay from 80's Wrestling, the podcast. Happy Memorial Day weekend to you, sir.
First of all, I'd like to say hello to all the wrestling fans all around the world. They know Aaron Shiek. I'm the Road Wrestling Federation champ. Not talking. When I talk, you're not talking. I'm the Road Wrestling Federation champ. Olympic gold medal champ. Pocket every Memorial Day.
I just wanted to ask you a quick question. We were talking about WrestleMania 7, and we were talking about Colonel Mustafa helping Sergeant Slaughter capture the World Wrestling Federation champion and challenge Hulk Hogan. What are your thoughts on Colonel Mustafa?
First of all, I don't like it, the Colonel Mustafa. It's fucking bullshit. Colonel Mustafa, I'm the real champ. Not the Hollywood blonde, jabroni piece of shit, Hulk Hogan. Not the Ultimate Warrior, Baba. How can it be, Colonel Mustafa?
Do you have big plans for the Memorial Day weekend?
Oh my God! You should see his face right now. Ask him that. It's turning red. Ask him that question again.
About Mustafa or about Memorial Day weekend?
No, ask him about his Memorial Day plans again.
Okay, is he in listening range? I don't know.
His face is so red. But ask him, God.
All right. Shiek, do you have? I mean, maybe you're a hot dog guy, a hamburger guy. Do you have any plans for Memorial Day weekend?
Yeah, Baba. My plan, I'm going to put you in the fucking camel clutch. I'm going to break your fucking back and then make you humble. Goodbye.
Nice chatting with you as usual.
Wow.
Man.
That's it. That's going to wrap it up for this week here on 80's Wrestling, the podcast. We hope that you and your family have a wonderful Memorial Day weekend. Jay, I hope you and your family down there in Minnesota have a great weekend as well. Have a couple hot dogs for me, a couple cold ones for me. And we'll see you right here next week with 80's Wrestling merchandise on 80's Wrestling, the podcast.